Hello, this is Shmuel Moshe, and you are listening to the Weekly Parashahcast Season 2, the show where I take portions of the Tanakh and read them to provide my own interpretations of what I think they all mean. This week's Torah portion is Vayetzeh, falling on the 6th of Kislev, 5785, December 7th, 2024. Today's show, we're going to be reviewing the book of Yehoshua, chapters 16 through 18, and if you'd like to go ahead and check out this week's portion, you can visit last year's episode from 5784, covering Vayetzeh. I'm reading the English translation from Chabad.org today, if you want to follow along, but aside from that, I want to remind everybody I'm not a professional Torah scholar, just somebody who wanted to study the Torah. With that said, let's go ahead and jump into Yehoshua, chapter 16, continuing off of last week, verse 1. And the lot for the children of Joseph went out from the Jordan at Jericho, to the water of Jericho on the east, to the wilderness that goes up from Jericho on the mountain to Bethel. And it went out from Bethel to Luz, and passed along to the border of Archi to Atarot. And it went down westward to the border of Japhleti, to the border of lower Betharon, and to Gezer, and its going out were at sea. And the children of Joseph, Manasseh and Ephraim, took their inheritance. And the border of the children of Ephraim, according to their families, was, the border of their inheritance on the east side was Atroth Adar to upper Betharon, and the border went out toward the west of Michmetat on the north side, and the border turned about eastward to Tanat Shiloh, and passed over it on the east of Yanoah. And it went down from Yanoah to Atarot and to Naarat, and reached Jericho, and went out at the Jordan. The border went westward from Tappuah to the stream of Kanah, and its going outs were at sea. This is the inheritance of the tribe of the children of Ephraim according to their families. And the separated cities for the children of Ephraim among the inheritance of the children of Manasseh, all the cities with their villages. And they did not drive out the Canaanites that dwelt within Gezer, but the Canaanites dwelt among the Ephraimites to this day, and they became servants under tribute. Alright, so that's the end of chapter 16, a very brief chapter. So for those who've been following along, we're now continuing off of the breakdown of who inherited what in the Holy Land following the conquests of Joshua and Bnei Israel as they marched in. Now what's interesting about all this is really just covering the specific plots. Now I want to make an interesting point here because today, in modern day, people refer to the Jews, people that are Jews, right? To be Jewish. But to be Jewish means that you're from Judah. Now, the reason I bring this up is that is very much, well, it's something of an exclusive club considering we're talking now about the children of Joseph, Manasseh and Ephraim, their tribes, as well as the others, which we'll go more into. So I do want to bring up the point when people talk about the Holy Land in Israel, we're noticing here that this particular part of what would be Israel should belong to Manasseh and Ephraim's people. That means that the land of Israel as it is known today, if it was to follow the traditional breakdown of who inherits what, well, Jerusalem and all that we'll talk about more, but there is more to it than just the country Israel. It's supposed to be divided up 12 ways. Now, with this in mind, we also know there was a commandment to not allow different groups so-and-so to dwell, right? And so they were supposed to wipe out the different tribes of people that existed in the land when they arrived. But it says here in the final verse, and they did not drive out the Canaanites that dwelt in Gezer, but the Canaanites dwelt among the Ephraimites to this day, and they became servants under tribute. Now, I want to draw a quick throwback. So, okay, they were not destroyed. This seems to be a recurring theme among a number of the people that inhabited this land. But I also want to point out something else. Cursed be Canaan, right? Or cursed be Canaan. His sons shall be servants unto his brothers. Something to this effect. This is a curse that predates the Israelites up to Noah, following the events that took place during the Torah portion in which Noah was bothered by his son, and thus cursed his grandson, Canaan, to be a slave unto others. And so this is a fulfillment of Noah's prophecy or curse, but in a way also spares their life because if they were wiped out, they couldn't fulfill the curse. Therefore, maybe it was a blessing in disguise. All right, on to chapter 17, verse 1 of the book of Joshua. And there was a lot for the tribe of Manasseh, for he was firstborn of Joseph. For Machir, the firstborn of Manasseh, the father of Gilead, because he was a man of war. Therefore he had Gilead and Bashan. There was also a lot for the rest of the children of Manasseh, according to their families, for the children of Abiezer, and for the children of Helek, and for the children of Asriel, and for the children of Shechem, and for the children of Hefer, and for the children of Shemidah. These are the male children of Manasseh the son of Joseph by their families. But Zelophehad, the son of Hefer, the son of Gilead, the son of Machir, the son of Manasseh, had no sons, but daughters. And these are the names of his daughter: Machlah and Noah, Hoglah, Milcah, and Tirzah. And they came near before Eleazar the priest, and before Joshua the son of Nun, and before the princes, saying, "The Lord commanded Moses to give us an inheritance among our brothers. According to the commandment of the Lord, he gave them an inheritance among the brothers of their father. And there fell 10 portions to Manasseh beside the land of the Gilead, and Bashan, which is on the other side of the Jordan. Because the daughters of Manasseh had an inheritance among his sons, and the rest of Manasseh's sons had the land of Gilead. And the border of Manasseh was from Asher to Michmetat, that is before Shechem, and the border went along on the right to the inhabitants of En-Tappuah. The land of Tappuah belonged to Manasseh, but Tappuah on the border of Manasseh belonged to the children of Ephraim. And the border descended to the brook Kanah, southward of the brook. These cities of Ephraim are among the cities of Manasseh. The border of Manasseh was on the north side of the river, and its outgoings were to the sea. Southward it was Ephraim's, and northward it was Manasseh's, and the sea was his border. And they met in Asher on the north, and in Issachar on the east. And Manasseh had in Issachar and in Asher Beth Shean and her towns, and Ibleam and her towns, and the inhabitants of Dor and her towns, and the inhabitants of Endor and her towns, and the inhabitants of Tanach and her towns, and the inhabitants of Megiddo and her towns, the 3 regions. And the children of Manasseh could not drive out the inhabitants of these cities, but the Canaanites were content to dwell in this land. And it came to pass, when the children of Israel became strong, that they put the Canaanites to tribute, but did not drive them out. And the children of Joseph spoke to Joshua, saying, "Why have you given me 1 lot and 1 portion for an inheritance, seeing I am a numerous people, forasmuch as the Lord has blessed me thus?" And Joshua said to them, "If you are a numerous people, then go up to the forest and cut down for yourself there in the land of the Perizzites and of the giants, if Mount Ephraim is too confined for you." And the children of Joseph said, "The hill is not enough for us, and all the Canaanites that dwell in the land of the valley have chariots of iron, they who are of Beth Shean and her towns, and they who are of the valley of Jezreel." And Joshua spoke to the house of Joseph, to Ephraim, and to Manasseh, saying, "You are a numerous people, and have great power. You shall not have 1 lot, but the mountain shall be yours, for it is a forest, and you shall cut it down, and its outgoings shall be yours, for you shall drive out the Canaanite, though he has iron chariots, and though he is strong." End of chapter 17. All right, so now some more information about the tribe of Manasseh and what they received. So we got the breakdown that among the different descendants of Manasseh, there were a handful that received land. It says in Gilead and Bashan. Now remember, on the other side of the Jordan, it was so that they said Gad, Reuben, and half of the tribe of Manasseh took land on the other side of the Jordan. So on this side, the other half will get land. And it refers here something from the Torah that there was Zelophehad, son of Hefer, son of Gilead, son of Machir, the son of Manasseh. He did not have any sons, only daughters. And if we recall, these women went to Moses and said, "We have an issue. Our father did not have any sons, and so what about his portion of the inheritance? We should inherit that because he didn't have any boys." And sure enough, it was deemed that their words were just and righteous, and therefore it was appropriate for them to receive the land. And if we also remember, the condition was that they could only marry within the tribe of Manasseh, because then the other people from Manasseh were like, "Well, wait a minute, if those women marry somebody else, then that portion of the land that was their father's inheritance goes to the other tribe. That's not acceptable." So that is why the women of Manasseh must marry fellow Manashites. I don't even know what to call them, but just like the Judeans or the Jews are from Judah, the Manashites or the Benjamites or whatever from these different tribes. So the people of Manasseh must stay together, at least among these daughters. So sure enough, they go to Eleazar, son of Aaron, the high priest, and before Joshua, and they say, "Hey, this was the deal," and they say, "So it was." So here you go. There are 10 portions for Manasseh, besides the land of Gilead and Bashan, which is on the other side of the Jordan, right? So in addition to the stuff over the Jordan, you also get this, because they have a right to claim it. Now, it says, of course, where their border was. So it says from Asher to Michmetat and so on. It goes on a series of different explanations here and just the exact borders of the town and so on, or borders of the tribal territory. Now, going on beyond here, it says that the tribe of Manasseh could not drive out the inhabitants of these cities, but the Canaanites were content to dwell in this land. This is what we were talking about in the previous chapter as well. So the Canaanites are still there, and it says that they were made into tributaries. So instead, what happens here is they become strong enough to put them under subjugation. But then they go and they say, this mountain that we live on, it's just not big enough for us. We need more space. We need more. And this mountain that we have is not enough. And Joshua says to them, well, listen, if it's not enough for you, you're strong, you can handle it. Why don't you go to war and take the rest of the mountain? Or it says here, if you are numerous people, then go up to the forest and cut down for yourself there in the land of the Perizzites and of the giants, if Mount Ephraim is too confined for you. And they say that the hill is not enough, but the Canaanites that dwell in the land of the valley, etc., have chariots of iron. And so they're basically saying, yeah, it's not enough for us, but, they're real strong, so I don't know if we can handle them. And Joshua says, you're a big group. You can handle it, all right? You're not going to have one lot. The whole mountain will be yours. All right, you shall not have one lot, but the mountain shall be yours, and you shall cut it down, and its outgoing shall be yours, because you will drive out the Canaanites, though he has iron chariots, and though he is strong. So he's basically saying, O ye of little faith, even though there are strong people, you're going to do just fine. So that's basically him saying, toughen up, Buttercup. Go take care of it. You've got the land. Go claim your mountain. That's yours. It's not, it's a nice way of saying it, right? You're strong enough. Go handle it. Now moving on to chapter 18, the last chapter for today's episode. Verse 1. And the entire congregation of the children of Israel assembled at Shiloh, and set up the tent of meeting there, and the land was subdued before them. And there remained among the children of Israel 7 tribes who had not yet received their inheritance. And Joshua said, How long are you slack to come and to possess the land, which the Lord God of your forefathers has given you? Appoint for yourselves 3 men for each tribe, and I will send them, and they shall arise and go through the land, and describe it according to their inheritance, and they shall come to me. And they shall divide it into 7 parts. Judah shall remain in his border on the south, and the house of Joseph shall remain in their border on the north. You shall describe the land into 7 parts, and bring it here to me, and I will cast lots for you here before the Lord our God. For the Levites have no part among you, for the priesthood of the Lord is their inheritance, and Gad and Reuben and the half-tribe of Manasseh have taken their inheritance on the eastern side of the Jordan, which Moses the servant of the Lord gave them. And the men arose and went. And Joshua charged those that went to describe the land, saying, Go and walk through the land, and describe it, and return to me, and I will cast lots for you here before the Lord in Shiloh. And the men went and passed through the land, and described it by cities into 7 parts in a book. And they came to Joshua to the camp at Shiloh. And Joshua cast lots for Shiloh before the Lord, and there Joshua divided the land to the children of Israel according to their divisions. And the lot of the tribe of the children of Benjamin came up according to their families, and the border of their lot went out between the children of Judah and the children of Joseph. And their border on the north side was from the Jordan, and the border went up to the side of Jericho on the north, and went up through the hill westward, and its going outs were to the wilderness of Bet-Aven. And the border went over from there to Luz, the side of Luz, which is Bethel, southward, and the border descended to Atrot Adar on the hill that lies on the south side of Lower Bet-Horon. And the border was circled, and encompassed the west side southward, from the hill that lies before Bet-Horon southward, and its going outs were at Kiryat Baal, which is Kiryat Yarim, a city of the children of Judah. This was the west side. And the south side was from the end of Kiryat Yarim, and the border went out to Asi, and went out to the spring of the waters of Nephtoah. And the border went down to the end of the mountain that lies before the valley of the son of Hinnom, and which is in the valley of the giants, Rephaim, on the north, and descended to the valley of Hinnom to the side of the Jebusite on the south, and descended to En-Rogel. And it circled from the north, and went to En-Shemesh, and went out to Gelilot, which is over against the ascent of Adumim, and descended to Eben of Bohan, the son of Reuben. And it passed along to the side over against the Arabah northward, and it went down to the Arabah. And the border passed along to the side of Beth-Hoglah northward, and the outgoings of the border were at the bay of the Salt Sea to the north. And the south end of the Jordan, this was the south border. And the Jordan borders it on the east side. This was the inheritance of the children of Benjamin by its borders round about, according to their families. And the cities of the tribe of the children of Benjamin, according to their families, were Jericho, and Beth Hoglah, and the valley of Keziz, and Beth Arabah, and Zemaraim, and Bethel, and Avim, and Parah, and Ophrah, and Cedar Hamonah, and Ophni, and Geba, 12 cities with their villages, Gibeon, and Ramah, and Beerot, and Mizpeh, and Chepirah, and Mozah, and Rechem, and Irpil, and Taralah, and Zelah, Eleph, and the Jebusite, which is Jerusalem, Gibeat, and Kiriath, 14 cities with their villages. This is the inheritance of the children of Benjamin according to their families. All right, end of chapter. So once again, let's go ahead and recap. So the first thing is the entire congregation meets at Shiloh, and the tent of meeting has been set up. So just like things used to be back before all the wars and all that, while they were wandering through the desert, now we've got our formal congregation and the tent. Everything's cool. Now from here, Joshua looks around and he sees that 7 of the 12 tribes have not yet claimed their inheritance. And he says, "What are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? How long are you slack to come and to possess the land?" Is exactly what he says. So what he says is, what we're going to do is give me 3 representatives from each tribe and go and survey the remaining land. And I want all of you to come back and tell me what you saw. We're going to divide it as 7 different parts. So basically, these 7 times 3, these 21 men go out and do like an expedition where they survey the territory. And when they come back, they divide what they've looked up across 7 parts. So there are 7 tribes. Now we're going to divide the remaining land by 7, and you're going to tell me where those borders are. And then we're going to cast lots before God so that it'll be fair to see who gets what parts. And he also reminds them, we're not going to do this with the Levites because their portion is God with the priesthood. And then also, Reuben and Gad have been taken care of, as well as half of Manasseh. We've already taken care of the other half of Manasseh as well. So we don't need to worry about them. So with all that covered, we now are here to cast these lots, and we get the description of the land. He casts the lots, and then he goes and explains the tribe of Benjamin and their territory. So I'm not going to go into the specifics, though I will point out Jerusalem is on here, as well as Bethel. Bethel being very important. Last week's Torah portion is where Jacob, of course, congregates, or he has his moment and becomes Israel later on the way home. But on the way out to his uncle Laban's home, that's where Bethel, I believe, is where he stayed overnight, this house of God. So it's a very significant place, and it is a part of the territory of Benjamin, as well as Jerusalem, it says. And it also makes a point about these different cities and places within. So now we know the inheritance of the children of Benjamin. This is the territory, and I can assume we're going to continue with this in later portions. But for now, that's all for this week's episode. Thank you for tuning in for Joshua chapters 16 through 18 of the Tanakh. We have certainly taken away a couple of interesting things here. I do think it's worth noting what took these other tribes so long to start asking for their portion. We had the individual tribes before this, right? So Judah, they claimed what was theirs. Reuben and Gad claimed it on the other side of the Jordan River, so that was taken care of. The other half tribe of Manasseh was taken care of as well. So they all jumped up to claim what was their birthright. And I think that's very interesting. Right? So, like, what's the significance of the order and the timing? I don't know, but whatever was left, this is now being divided up among the 7, and we start with Benjamin. So it just so happened that the lots gave them all this territory. That is what was fated before God's witness lottery system. That's their territory. Very interesting. I guess we'll wait and see what comes next, but for now, that's all. Thanks for tuning in, and I hope you'll tune in next time where we continue the book of Joshua. And until then, this has been Shmuel Moshe with the Weekly Parashahcast Season 2, saying thanks for listening, and as always, Baruch Hashem.